we take almost all of our direction from the Panthers that came before us. We just have to apply those principles to present time. So that's why I still reach out to the OGs. I don't think I know everything. So I reach out to them. Hey, I got a problem. I called you recently because I had a problem. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that we have to do that, because a lot of the times, one thing that we did encounter in some cases, OGs not wanting to pass the mantle, not wanting to move it forward because they were afraid that people are going to tarnish the legacy. And I'm like, well, there's only one way you're going to find out. It can't die with you. If the Panthers weren't needed now, I can understand it dying with you, but the Panthers are still needed now. So
Evolving barbaric hieroglyphs, I spit my gifts, shift your surface with vernacular skill. The raw is near, touching down like meteors, none other than black gods. Stones in my timepiece coming from black stars. Negativity for keep far away from doors. Single-mindedly destroying the ops and the odds. Just another warrior's quest. The past may get rich. Demons coming for my crown, get beheaded like the next. These blessings never threats, just to verbalize a message, catching energies of critics, all the Atari get deaded. Pray I stay alert on the field, be skillmatic in anything my enemies deal. Be dead actions, I proceed just like I lead beneath it. So many seas to win, it's our time to align stars. So spirits lead, who could war with me? Catastrophically or audibly, given no choice by God's law, I'm Lucifer on streets.
So all power to the people. Welcome to the Panther 48. We got myself, Brother Robert Ward, San Diego Black Panther Party Chairman. And then we got Brother E.
Peace, family.
Also got special guest, Brother Bunchy Carter from Washington Black Panther Party.
All power to the people. How y'all doing?
All right. And then we got someone that just connected in.
We got
how you pronounce that?
Oh, Aja. Yeah, Aja. She's one of our newer members. She's actually one of our top cadre in regards to medical situations. Like she's pretty much the go-to person for that. So you know what I'm saying? I got a feeling she'll be in the Central Committee before long, but you know, it's a process. So
gotcha. All right, appreciate you. Well, let's just start off by telling us a little bit about Bunch about, you know, what inspired you coming up and what kind of experiences influenced you to be active in the community.
Well, I kind of had the cheat code on that because my dad was in the original formation of the Panthers when he was very young. You know, he was one of those kind of like Jamal Joseph from New York, who joined when he was like 16. Lil Bobby joined when he was 16. My dad joined really early, and unfortunately, because he joined early, but because of when he was born, he came into the party. It was probably about 2 or 3 years before they started pulling everybody back to Oakland. He actually went out to Oakland for a little while, but it just wasn't for him. And so he went back home. But that was kind of my motivation, because from a young age, you know, he was telling me about how the party worked, what the party was able to do in the community, how they were able to, you know, some things that seemed like they hadn't changed. He was like, yeah, but this is something you don't understand is happening. You know, he was like, when you go to school and you eat breakfast for free, we did that. You know what I'm saying? The party did that. The government picked it up because they felt like that made us dangerous. Feeding children made us dangerous. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. And, you know, as a young child, I interpreted it the best way I could, but I didn't get the full grasp of it because, I mean, I'm still young, so some of it don't make sense to me. But as I got older and things started to happen in society that I was paying notice to, you know, people being, I think the Rodney King thing was probably the thing that snapped me out of my lull and made me say, wait, this is still happening. Like, okay, hold on. I ain't been paying enough attention. So I would say between my father, you know, some of his friends around him, and then the Rodney King incident kind of re-inspired me to get back out in the community. But it wasn't, even with that, I was kind of active, but then, you know, I did a little stretch behind the wall, came home, and I was just kind of focused on just trying to get my life back together. But then in 2000, I met some people from Florida that told me about the Uhuru movement. And when I found out that Huey kind of passed the torch to Omali Yeshitela, I was like, this is where I need to be there. So yeah, that's pretty much how it rolled for me. I mean, it's kind of been a constant since then that brought me back around to this point.
So was that always in Washington when you say that? As far as your father, what chapter was he a part?
Now my dad was on the East Coast, so he started out in New York. He went from New York to Philly, left Philly and went to Chicago for a little while. He ended up having to move back to New York because of some family situations. But then after the whole, the New York 21 situation kind of made everybody scatter. So at that point, he kind of, got out of New York, lay low for a little while. And then after all of that occurred, he was kind of moving around, not being real still until everybody started going back to Oakland. And he was like, well, yeah, I'll do that. And, see how that works out. Since everybody's going, it should be stable. Everything should be cool. I'm starting to think maybe he just don't like the West Coast. I think that might be what it is. So, yeah, I don't know. But no, that was out east. I just moved out here 6 years ago. So, what I'm saying? I'm still fairly new to Washington.
Gotcha. And that's what I was trying to find out, your situation in Washington from that standpoint. So also in regards to the Black Panther Party, outside of your pops, what other elders did inspired you to be active or you took note of?
Well, I mean, of course, Huey Newton. That goes without saying. Huey, obviously Bunchy Carter. I guess Fred Hampton was a big influence. Emory Douglas actually was a big influence because Emory kind of showed me that you don't even necessarily have to say anything to make an impact. You know what I'm saying? You could do it visually, and it can have the same reach. Asada Shakur was a big inspiration of mine. Even Elaine Brown was a big inspiration of mine. Just seeing people persevere in the Panther Party and not crumble under the pressure was big for me. You know what I'm saying? So when I saw how the LA chapter continued to thrive and keep fighting through, even after Bunchy and John got killed, just reading about Geronimo Pratt and how strong he was as a leader after all of that happened, all of those things pushed me to definitely feel like, yeah, this is the path I need to walk.
Cool. So how long has the Washington chapter of the Black Panther Party under your development been around?
We opened up shop October of 2020. So we've been October this year, make 2 years. It's been a fairly eventful year and some change already. So we're looking forward to how it rolls. But I mean, yeah, it's still been fairly new. I want to give credit to our chief of staff, Ovanayo, who actually was the person who began the chapter here. And, he called me up and said, bro, if I'm going to do this, I need you with me. So, yeah, definitely shout out to him.
Sweet. Cool. So what is the climate like in Washington in regards to systematic oppression?
Washington is a weird place, man, because, if you look at Washington politicians and listen to people talk about Washington, they talk about how progressive it is and all these other things. And there are many things that you will see that will give you the impression that is actually the case. But the reality is it's a very passive aggressive state. There's a lot of underlying things that occur that are buried behind a lot of smiles. I mean, that's something that we should be accustomed to by this point. But it's something special about the breed of it in Washington, because they'll say it with a smile, with that Washington accent, and everything sounds like it makes sense. But in all actuality, there's, it's double play going on. The government of Washington, the government of the state of Washington, and I can particularly speak to Tacoma and Lakewood, the areas that I've lived in since I've been here. They're very duplicitous, and they take every opportunity to put themselves in front of the cameras when there's a hot button topic going on, but they don't do much to address those things. So we've actually had situations where we run into issues with the system out here because we did something that they kept saying they were going to do. They didn't do it. We did it. The people gave us credit for it, and they had an issue with that. So I think, realistically speaking, having the governor of the current governor of Washington, Jay Inslee, is looked at in a particular light because he ran as a progressive, saying he was for the people. And if you look at the track record that he has voted under, the track record of things that he's passed, he's not working in the interest of the people. Obviously, he's working in the interest of corporate entities that literally run the state, like Microsoft and Amazon. They basically run, and Boeing, they run Washington.
That sounds typical right there when you say that part.
Absolutely.
What version of the 10-point platform do y'all use?
We actually use the updated version of the 10-point platform that was actually given to us by you in the San Diego chapter. We appreciate that big time. We originally were running off of the original 10-point platform. We still utilize it and use it to compare and contrast with people who may feel some type of way about the updated version, just to show them, hey, this is how it ties together, and this is why this is different. Some people don't like to see things change. They don't like to see progression or evolution. So we utilize that 10-point, but we also keep the old 10-point in circulation so that we can show them, hey, we still after the same thing. This is just showing you since 1966, this is where we should be right here. So it's not like we took the old 10 points and trashed it. It's updated and breathed new life into it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, that kind of speaks on one of the questions I was going to ask. I'm going to ask a little later on, but I might as well get into it now. As how do you address the nostalgia of the Black Panther Party? Because oftentimes people are stuck in the past. And so from that standpoint, going into what you just said about the 10-point platform, people don't necessarily see how things need to change to be addressed with the times. So some of the occurrences that you deal with in regards to that same aspect.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's weird because people, a lot of it, some of it's nostalgia and some of it is misdirected or misinformed nostalgia. People will judge what we do based on what they thought the Black Panther Party was, not what they know or understand it to be. So, like a lot of what we've dealt with has come into the form of, people saying, "Hey, man, screw Black Panthers," because they think we're the new Black Panther Party and they don't deal with them, or they'll see us out with the former White Panther Party, now just the Panther Party. They'll see us out with them and like, why y'all with them white people? I thought y'all was Black Panthers. And I'm, oh, do you realize the Black Panther Party is not a racist organization? So a lot of things have fallen under the thing that I often tell people when they come in. I say, I know you see guns and you see XYZ, da da da. I said, but the real core of this thing is about education. So a big part of that falls under education. We spend a lot of time teaching people the actual history of the Black Panther Party and what the Black Panther Party actually did, not what the media or whatever misinformed history outlet they may have got their information from told them.
Cool. Someone else just jumped on, not sure how to pronounce that name, that SIKK.
Sick. Yeah, that's our Minister of Health and Wellness, Brother
Okay.
Sick. He's a good one. He's also part of the security team. Good comrade, man. Sick been with us since the beginning. So,
Cool.
yeah, he's been with us the whole ride. That's my man.
So tell me something here, because, and I'm not sure if anybody's going to get a chance to jump on, but when you reference the White Panther Party, how long have they been around? Are you familiar with them being around in Washington as far as this development of them?
Well, actually, the iteration of them that we roll with started with us, not at the same time. It started May 1st, 2021. And my brother Addo, who was the chairman of the Panther Party, he reached out to the original White Panthers to get clearance from them to even use the name, to get a better understanding of their history, why they chose that name, what was the real motivation behind all of it. And once he got a better understanding of who they were and what they represented, he felt comfortable doing so. He did take the opportunity also to update their 10 points, because their 10 points was wild. But I understood that they did that as a contrast to say, you think what the Black Panthers are asking you for is extreme? How about this? And it's coming from a white face, so you can only be so upset about it. You know what I'm saying? And after talking to Lenny Sinclair, who was one of the founders of the White Panther Party, original White Panther Party back in '68, I understood at that point. Now I get it. Like I get it, because not only behind that, but also my understanding of Fred Hampton and his thoughts behind the Rainbow Coalition and all of that. So I was like, yo, we have to make people understand. We spend a lot of time explaining that too, but it's definitely worth giving that explanation if it starts to close some gaps that need to be closed. Okay.
Now, what about 2020 was pivotal to make the formation start then?
Now, some probably think it was George Floyd, but the reality is it was actually Tacoma's very own version of George Floyd, which was Manny Ellis, who died in a very similar fashion. You know, George Floyd was the hot button topic that national news was pumping, and a lot of people were out in the streets marching in different areas behind George Floyd. And we didn't have any issue with that. The biggest problem for me was George Floyd died in Minnesota. You got a brother right here down the street in Tacoma that died the same way. Why are we not dealing with that? With that being the case, and just seeing how a lot of the organizations out here were scattered and so busy trying to be the first one to do this or the first one to do that, pardon me, that there wasn't a lot of unity. And right now, as people have started to notice, like one thing that we've become as we've been in existence is kind of a hub to start bringing people together. To hey, you do this, hey, they want to do that too, but you already have it going. Why don't you talk to them and let them come support you? You know what I'm saying? In 2020, we didn't see any of that. Like they weren't working together. Everybody was separated. Everybody wanted to be the leader as opposed to us leading. We have to be the leaders of our communities. So since we didn't see that, we knew the one organization that we've seen that was able to take that mantle and run with it and actually do positive things for the community and be that leadership and be that example that the community needed was the Black Panther Party. So what better thing to do than rebirth it right here, right now when we need it the most.
So is your father out in Washington too? Was he instrumental in that decision? And as far as
oh no, my dad, he back east, man. He's proud of me. You know, he's proud of what we're doing. He just says, you know, he regularly says the same thing. Y'all just be careful, man. Just be careful. You know, because once you get to a certain point and you do enough to help the people, they come. So he's been very supportive. A lot of the OGs have been supportive. You, of course, have helped me immensely since we started this thing. Comrade Che from Chicago has helped out quite a bit. I talked to Daruba Ben Wahad a few times. Sister Sheba Haven, she used to run the medical clinic down in the Bay. A lot of people that I talked to, you know, and they've given us a lot of encouragement and a lot of direction to show us, you know, okay, I saw you say this. Maybe next time say it this way. You know what I'm saying? You leaving the door wide open for X, Y, Z to happen if you say that. I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. Because I mean, the thing that most people don't recognize or realize is we take almost all of our direction from the Panthers that came before us. We just have to apply those principles to present time. So that's why I still reach out to the OGs. I don't think I know everything. So I reach out to them. Hey, I got a problem. I called you recently because I had a problem. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that we have to do that because a lot of the times, one thing that we did encounter in some cases, OGs not wanting to pass the mantle, not wanting to move it forward because they were afraid that people are going to tarnish the legacy. And I'm like, well, there's only one way you're going to find out. It can't die with you. If the Panthers weren't needed now, I can understand it dying with you, but the Panthers are still needed now. So, yeah, that's just my personal, you know, belief in regards to that.
So I share that same belief on that note. What are some programs or issues that y'all are addressing out there in Washington that you like the people to be aware of?
Well, we have several things that we're tied directly to currently. Of course, we've done a lot in regards to police brutality, police accountability. That was probably the first thing that we got attached to. And I mean, it just makes sense being Panthers that would be the first thing we would be attached to. The case of young brother Saeed Joaquin, who was killed by Lakewood police May 1st, 2020. That's one of the biggest things. We have an action network campaign running for that and pressing to get a meeting with the governor to try to get him to grab a private investigator to look into the case because the Pierce County prosecutor is a former police dispatcher who's married to a retired police officer, and she's never chosen to prosecute a police officer for killing black or people of color in the streets out here. So we know that that's not going to happen, so we got to push it higher. That's one of the top things on my personal priority list as Minister of Defense. We also have done quite a bit with the houseless situation. We go out and do a feed for the homeless community every 2 weeks. We wish we could do it more often, but you have to do what your funding and your donations and so forth allow you to do. So we do that every 2 weeks, and we're building a rapport with the houseless community. They did a sweep on them recently, so we had a couple Panthers show up to help them relocate before the police came through. And then, you know, some of them didn't want to leave. So the Panthers showed up, made sure the police didn't act up with them, didn't throw their property away. And, you know, making sure that they give them proper notice if they're going to sweep a site before they come, and don't just come do it in the middle of the night and damage people's property. And a big thing also is working on the addiction aspect of that, getting people employed again, getting people IDs, getting people telephones, cell phones, things that they're going to need to re-enter what they consider to be being a viable part of society. That's high on the priority list as well. We've been working with the schools, the BSUs in the high schools, because of the poor state, not only of the education system in itself here in Washington, but also the administrators in the schools and the school boards do not have the best interests of these children at heart. And some of the things that they're enduring just in the name of trying to get an education are deplorable, to say the least. So we've been working really hard on that, just trying to connect the BSUs to one another, to show them, hey, just like we are connecting with other Panther branches around the country, you have to connect with other BSUs that are fighting the same fights that you're fighting, because you have strength in numbers, and you know that you have us and your parents and every other person in the community who believes this is wrong supporting you. Well, we're building future leaders by doing that, by not speaking for them. We speak in support of them, but we don't speak for them. You teach them to be leaders for themselves, you teach them to fight for one another. And in that way, in and of itself, they become kind of like a mirror of the Panthers, but within their own framework as a BSU. I think it's one other. Oh, well, I mean, we do have our longest running program right now is the Panther Pickup. We do bi-weekly cleanups in neighborhoods and parks in the city. We do that basically to encourage people to take more accountability for how the place that they lay their head look, and for them to take some pride in where they live. One of the things that I noticed growing up, I grew up in the projects. So one of the things I noticed was, because it's the projects, because it's called the projects, because it's trashy, because there's graffiti everywhere, people just don't care. They just do whatever. So I'm like, yo, if we actually take the initiative to clean up, to show that we care about where we live and we care about one another, it totally changes the narrative, not only of our community, but right now, but our community moving forward. The projects and the hood don't have to be a death trap if you don't want it. So that's a big one too. We also do a lot with missing people. When especially kids, when kids go missing, there is a group on Facebook that posts, you know, kids' information when they go missing. So we build flyers of our own, disperse them to our network. We've actually helped get several kids back home to their families. So I'm very grateful for being a part of that.
That's awesome there, man. How do you deal with have y'all had issues of gentrification out there in regards to the Black community?
Yeah. Like the oldest Black neighborhood in Tacoma, Hilltop. The gentrification happening over there is ridiculous. So we actually basically set up our hub over there to kind of spur it off, because for whatever reason, the people who want to do all the gentrification don't seem to want to be around when we're around. So I think that's a good thing. They're pricing people out of their homes. You know, they're saying, yo, we're going to tear it down and we're going to build new affordable housing here. But what was affordable was where they was already at. You can't tear that down and then build something that costs twice as much and then expect the same people to come back and live in. If they could afford that, they wouldn't have been living here in the first place, probably. So the reality is we have to be more mindful of supporting not only our Black businesses, but also we have to be mindful of supporting our Black communities, our Black families, families who make up our communities. We have to support them. I say that not to discount Black families, but I know in Washington, the Black population is very small. Mm. So a lot of the families that we have in what we would consider the Black community are actually more mixed households. It can either be Black and white, Black and Islander, Black and Asian, Black and Native, whatever the case may be. A lot of the households in Tacoma that exist within the Black community are not purely Black. And that's something too that I had to get used to coming from, you know, where I come from. It's, you know, you don't see a lot of that, you know what I'm saying? So it's been taking a lot of getting used to that as well. But once we understood the concept of, oh, this is how this works. Okay, now that we know that, it's easier to stave off the gentrification and empower this community to keep the gentrifiers out if we pay the proper respect to what they've already built. So that's what we try to do, try to be mindful of that, but also give them a different ideology about what they're doing so that they see it clearly and not just from an emotional standpoint.
Now you reference the Black Student Unions. Are there other grassroots organizations that you deal with, that the Panthers deal with?
There are a couple. There are a few. I mean, we build with the Young Lords pretty heavy, the Young Lords and the Brown Berets. As far as right here in Washington, it's a group called Legally Black that we do a lot of work with. And those ladies are amazing. I mean, they're something special. They do a lot of things. I mean, the name Legally Black is a little misdirecting to a degree, because they're not necessarily a legal team, but they're legally Black simply because they everything that they do is in an effort to quote unquote legalize being unapologetically Black. And so I love working with them. We all love working with them. We also work with the Needle Exchange, to Tacoma DSA, Food Not Bombs. Man, it's a lot. It's a lot of crews out here. But like I said, we started kind of becoming a hub that start tying groups together, because we want to get involved in so many things. But the advantage that we have that they didn't have in '66 is a lot of the programs they started in '66. There's somebody out here doing that already. Now we just have to find it, support it, and direct the people in the right direction. So we have the advantage of not having to build the wheel or try to reinvent the wheel. We just have to put the people in the right shop so they can go get it.
So with that being said, what kind of hurdles did y'all face when y'all started your chapter in regards to being the Black Panther Party? The people, as far as people and expectations, and so on and so forth on that note.
One of the biggest problems we've had is honestly, even in an open carry state, is just people being uncomfortable with us being armed in places. People getting the wrong impression from us being armed, or even when they can't visibly see guns, we have, bulletproof vests on and so forth and so on. We're dressed tactically, of course. And people sometimes take exception to that. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's starting to slowly make sense to me as I get approached. And I notice that every time I get approached when we go somewhere, it's always the same type of person approaching. It's always some, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even want to call them Karens, because they're supposed to be down for this cause, but you're here for this cause. And the people who are throwing this event that you say you're down for, they invited us here to help secure this and to make sure everybody was cool, to come share our thoughts on what this is about. And you're so nervous because we're here and we're different from you, that you feel the need to come ask me why we're there, ask me who invited us there. So that's one of the biggest hurdles, that, and then also just the police, really. The police have been an issue to a degree. Some people who, as we was talking about in the beginning, some people who have this nostalgic view of what the Panthers are supposed to be, what they're supposed to look like, how they're supposed to walk, how they're supposed to talk, and we don't do that. And they say, oh, well, you didn't say ABC, how can you be a Black Panther? Or you don't do ABC, how can you be a Black Panther? And I'm like, the reality is, that goes back into the whole education thing. We are spending a lot of time trying to teach people exactly what a Black Panther is, show them where the cracks are in the picture that they've been given of what a Black Panther is. As much as I love Huey P. Newton, there's a lot of hero worship that goes on there. And sometimes I even have to say, hey, well, hold on. Just hold on. Let's tell the whole story if we're gonna tell. And that's not to discount Huey at all. I love Huey P. Newton. Let me make that clear. But I say, hey, we have to tell the whole story, because only in telling the whole story can you understand how to not let it happen again. That's the only way you're gonna know how to not let it happen. So there's been some pushback to that, because people just aren't interested in knowing the truth in some cases. They rather lean to their own understanding. But I think those are presently, and recruiting has been an issue, mainly because people, particularly in Washington, I've noticed, have an issue with dedicating themselves to anything. It's weird because they'll say, man, thank y'all so much for what y'all do. We appreciate y'all being here. And we'll say, well, hey, why don't you come sign up? We could always use more, we could always use more people. We always use more hands, more eyes. They're good with thanking you for doing what you do or congratulating you for a job well done, but they don't want to be a part of the work. And that is a problem. That definitely presents an issue.
Yeah, on that same note, in which you have a new member here, younger member possibly.
Yeah.
They take on why they feel that recruiting is kind of hard, because I mean, really, I feel like that's kind of the sentiment we get across the country, period, with the younger generations. And so I like to hear from one of them in regards to their take on what makes it more difficult. If someone that they don't mind.
Aja, if you can speak up, and answer to that as far as what you think may be making recruitment so difficult currently.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. I think the hardest part, like, I mean, I am almost 30, so I'm not like, young generation, like, the 20s and Gen Z and stuff. But at least like for me, like my generation is pretty much like knee deep in 9-to-5s and just trying to like live right now. I think what needs to happen with my generation, at least like at this stage in our lives, is to be convinced that the threat of inaction and maintaining the status quo it's the risk versus reward. Like the risk of like losing your job, getting locked up, like it's paralyzing for a lot of people in my position because we got bills to pay. A lot of us have started families, et cetera, et cetera. I have come to recognize that punching into a clock every day just to get my bills paid and like everything else, like that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for any of us. So to that end, really, I honestly think convincing like the young middle-aged adults that like what we have now is not sustainable. Like the way we're going right now is not sustainable. Like the risk, like we're already living the risk. The risk is having nothing to live for other than like wage slavery and hoping that makes your ends meet. Like, I mean, yeah, it's pretty much it. I don't want to start like rambling or anything, but I do feel like it kind of really boils down to people my age and my stage in life realizing like, we got to make moves and prime the generation after us to like follow up on those moves. And we got to set that example, because otherwise they're just going to settle into their little like 9-to-5 and like lives and stuff like that. That's my take on it, at least.
Appreciate that. So with that being stated, what are some books, Brother Bunchy, that you would recommend or that you make required reading for new membership or people being interested in joining?
The very first two books that we usually press upon new members are Revolutionary Suicide and Wretched of the Earth. And Wretched of the Earth can be a difficult read. We did cover that in our PE classes. I think it took us probably almost a month worth of PE classes to cover it. But it's only because sometimes I think in the translation from French to English, Fanon's words get a little jumbled, I think. And then also some of the concepts, if you haven't already studied like dialectical materialism or intercommunalism or any of those things, if you haven't studied any of that, some of the concepts of Wretched of the Earth may throw you for a loop for it. But we do that to create questions. Because I feel like once you start reading those, reading Wretched of the Earth will create questions. Reading the Revolutionary Suicide will start giving you answers to some of those questions. And then from there, we can start filling in the blanks and start adding on to those situations. So once you get through Wretched of the Earth and Revolutionary Suicide, then we move on to, it's a ton of books that we have to read. Like we move on to a bunch of different stuff. Blood in My Eye by George Jackson is a big one. And we actually moving on to that one next. I think that's the next book on the list. 48 Laws of Power. And sometimes we read things that may not necessarily seem like they make sense in the context of what we're doing. However, the most important thing you can learn, especially in being in a situation where you're a part of community defense, is learning how your enemy moves as well. So the art of war is something that we cover early on. Yes, I mean, we actually have as a matter of fact, the list that you gave me, we use that one pretty extensively. But we're kind of taking our time moving through books in order to give people time to digest it and give us an opportunity to put it in the proper context, because some people come into the party, some people have come into the party simply off the I hate to say the hype machine, but that's pretty much what it is. The name Black Panther Party brought them in, or because so many things was going crazy and they just felt like they needed to do something, they came. But they can come for those reasons, but they're only going to stay if they feel like you're feeding their soul or you're feeding their mind and they're giving them something that's walking them close to liberation. So that's why we take the book slowly and don't just force feed them to people, because if you haven't ever had access to those concepts, then we have to take that slow and show you how you should be seeing this with the ideology that's supposed to be moving forward as a Panther.
Good. I like that. I like that response, sir. So even with that being said, when you're talking about dealing with the community and raising the conscious level of the community as regard to, like what Adria was just saying, getting the people to recognize the fact that the current way things are going in terms of fascism, just in terms of United States, in terms of capitalism, just in terms of just how dominant things are with corporate worlds. How do you get the people to recognize that comfort is in itself part of the problem, and that caught up in that 9-to-5, being caught up in this complacency of only concerned about my family? What are some things I'll do to help bring the community out of that ceiling of awareness?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is I think, strangely enough, through working with these families that have been impacted by police violence and bringing people out who may not have had that experience, but they do, but they are an active member of the community. Those things help bring people together, and through the midst of these different events, bringing people out just to be a part of something going on, you have to. First of all, you have to make it plain to them exactly what the concrete problem is. Because the reality is, a lot of people, much like Aja was saying, a lot of people get so caught up in the cycle of how they're living. To them, that becomes reality. They don't actually see what's really happening. All they see is the cycle that they're stuck in. So you have to show them outside of that cycle and show them how the other things they're not looking at outside of that cycle affect the reason why they're stuck in it. Once you can explain that to somebody and make it relate to the life that they're living, it makes it a little bit easier to show them, hey, you feel like you're stuck in this. We have something that can bring you out. One of the best things that could have ever happened to us as an organization is for people to actively see the police, the mayor, and other people who are in positions of authority fail them. You have to be able to point that failure out, point out the reason behind that failure, and whether that failure is a systemic thing or an individual thing. Because sometimes you get a failure to occur, but it's a failure by that individual. But then you have other failures that occur that affect you in a much more universal way that are systemic failures. Pointing those out to people also help open their eyes and show them that maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. Raising the consciousness of the people look at that, people hear that phrase and they think that it's gonna be like lifting Mount Olympus, and sometimes it can be. But the reality is sometimes all you really have to do is make someone aware of what the actual reality of what their status is. That's why in the 10 points it said we want a real education to teach us our true position in this decadent society, because some people don't even realize that it's messed up. They think this is the way it's supposed to work.
Right. That's kind of what I meant about that aspect of consciousness. Sick, you remember Sick? Is that the one you said deal with the health?
Yeah, health and wellness, man. Absolutely.
Give me some insight on some of the things that you address out in the community or that you see wrong in terms of that. Is that also applied from a mental and a spiritual aspect in regards to the health, comrade? Maybe they're not there anymore. So let me just ask you that, Bunchy. As it applies to the Panther Party there, do you find yourself being at odds a lot of times with the religious communities, or you find ways to be able to work with them? And you're on mute, by the way.
I'm glad you said that, because I was just about to say. Actually, the funny thing is, the religious community for the most part has been fairly open to us for the most part. We have had some people, but those are mainly in the Christian circle who feel uncomfortable with guns and so forth and so on. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, man. But they come up here shooting, you're gonna be glad we're here with these. You know, it's hard to change people's minds about certain things. You know what I'm saying? Some people don't understand the necessity. Me personally, I got in a conversation with a pastor about guns, and I was like, well, hey, I'm in agreement with you, bro. I wish it wasn't no guns at all. You know why? Because it'll be a whole lot harder for the people who are currently in their position of power to maintain that power without the violence that they've been able to enact upon people. I'm all for that. But as long as they got it, we got it too. It only makes sense. So that's been a thing. I think, you know, as far as health and wellness in the community and how I feel like that's being affected now. Luckily we have several people that are part of our party who are vegan, vegetarian. They eat different. They can teach us different things about how to balance our diets, so forth and so on. Sick is really good with that. He's also an accomplished boxer, so he's good at, you know, he's been teaching a lot of that as well. He's actually fine-tuning the workout that I gave the security team. So I mean, like, and we're about to start doing community self-defense classes and just training classes, not necessarily for you to have self-defense training, but just for you to be in better physical shape. It ain't about necessarily being skinny or about losing weight. You can have the weight on. It's about being healthy. You know, opening people's eyes to a lot of that and a lot of the misconceptions that we've been given in our community about health and wellness over time, be that mental health, physical health, spiritual health. We've been misled about a lot of those things for so long. There's a lot of undoing to do, you know, in regards to that, as far as educating people about what they should be.
Cool. So another thing on that same note. Now, do y'all have the Nation of Islam down there that y'all work with at all?
We do not currently have a Nation of Islam temple in Washington anywhere. There was one in Seattle. I understand some time back, and if I'm not mistaken, I know Aaron Dixon said that they were cool with them. It's funny because I heard the story about when Huey and Farrakhan had a standoff at Huey's penthouse, and I was like, wow, that's deep. But there's not currently a Nation of Islam chapter of mosque here. I wish there was, because I actually was a member of the Nation when I was younger, and I'm still cool with a lot of the brothers in the Nation back on the East Coast. So.
Okay. So now, in regards to the weapons and that aspect, has that created any issues in regards to the comparison between the Black Panther Party and the new Black Panther Party in terms of why people may have an issue with that based upon the perception?
Absolutely, because there was a very strong wave of new Black Panther Party chapters in Seattle and Tacoma a few years back. They were heavily armed, and they talk real bad to the community sometimes when they out here. So when we first popped up, it was kind of like people were kind of standoffish because they weren't sure if we were that. And so we've had to do a lot of reassuring people to know we're not the Black Panther Party, we're just the Black Panther Party. Funny story, we actually had a situation at one of our park cleanups. We were about to leave, and I was getting in the car, and my comrade Token, who was actually our Minister of Finance, and our Chief of Staff Obadiah was still standing outside the car. And I was like, what are they doing? Then I noticed Token's face is like hella red. So I'm like, who is he yelling at? So I get out of the car, and it's this white guy across the street. And he's like, man, fuck Black Panthers. We're like, what? Now, my first instinct was not a good one. I will admit that. But after a second, I realized that this could be an opportunity to educate somebody. So I asked him, can you explain to me why you feel that way? And at first he tried to ignore me. He put his headphones on, turned his little leaf blower back on. But I stood there and waved at him. Hey, bro, I'm asking you a question. Can you tell me why you feel that way? Come to find out, the new Black Panther Party had held a rally in that park across the street from his house where we were at, and they were hella disrespectful. Then on top of that, he said he has a picture in his house with his daughter sitting on John Muhammad's lap. I said, oh, I get it now. John Muhammad, Nation of Islam, New Black Panther Party. You think we're that? Okay, let me tell you why we're not. once I started running down to him, I didn't even get halfway through the 10 points before he was like, man, I'm so sorry. Man, I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea. We shook hands. He shook Overnia's hand. Token was still really heated, so he didn't shake his hand. But, but after that day, I've literally seen this guy 10, 12 times since then. Every time he sees me, hey, Bunchy, what's going on, man? You good? Everything okay? And I ask him, hey, I'm great, man. Is anything going on in your neighborhood that we need to know about, that we can help you with? He was like, nah, but I got my eyes open, man. If I see anything, I got your card, I will call you. And that's how you do that. That's how you change that. Sometimes it's going to be a situation where somebody who does not have that knowledge, who does not have that awareness, and they're so belligerent about it, you have to handle it a different way. But he was willing to listen. And because he was willing to listen, we were able to teach him something that he didn't know. And now we have a new set of eyes in that community we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Cool. Is there, in regards to building with additional formations in the Washington area, have y'all been like able to reach out and assist, or is there like a calling for other chapters to be formed out in your area?
Yeah, actually, because we're the only, we're actually right now the only active Panther formation in Washington. We have some comrades who are up in Seattle, so we're trying to reestablish the base up there. Also down in Olympia, which is the capital, we definitely want to have a base there. Out in Eastern Washington, which is kind of far from us, but like, the racism we see here is nothing compared to what's going on over there. Like just the ferocity of it, because they know that it's less eyes on out there in the boondocks. So we got a couple people out there that are with the Panther Party. We're trying to get a Black Panther Party chapter started out there too, but the Black population in Eastern Washington is even smaller than it is over here. So it's going to be kind of difficult. But there are other organizations in existence that are out there trying to do something. So we're trying to link with them to see what we can do to, at the very least, assist with moving the needle forward. We're trying to improve the situation out there.
All right. So I see, since we wasn't able to get anybody on from the White Panther Party, I want us to set up another opportunity where we can have you and representative from them on at the same time, so we can kind of dive into some more aspects of how that relationship works, as well as educating the community and the people at large about that. Because one thing I do want to say, and it's just speaking from my experience here in San Diego, is we not have a formation of the White Panther Party here. And coming from the South, which, originally my introduction into the Panther ideology came as by way of New Black Panther Party. So I'm just real curious in terms of getting that information out, as well as how the two organizations work together, and what actually happens on that side of the fence in terms of opening up and fighting fascism and racism.
Well, the biggest thing and I mean, of course, we can go deeper into this when we revisit it, when we're able to get a couple of them on with us. But the biggest thing is, and Brother Addo makes it apparent on a regular basis. He says, listen, I'm the chairman of the Panther Party, but we answer to the Black Panther Party. So whatever the Black Panther Party says, that's what goes. Oftentimes, if we're in the same vicinity, because he is a chairman, so that means technically by title, he outranks. However, because I'm a Black Panther, I outrank him. But we'll be on scene, and I'll say, hey, Addo, tell so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. And he'll tell them, and we've had issues early on. We had issues early on with, some guys who weren't all the way hip to the plan. They was like, why the white boy telling me what to do? But I'm like, dog, he's telling you what I told him to tell you. If you hear it from him, it came from me. Don't worry about it. Just do it. That's the most important part. We out here trying to stay alive and keep everybody else here alive. Everybody's trying to go home tonight. Just do it. But as time has gone on, it's become a little more apparent that now they understand, okay, because he'll quickly say, if somebody asks a question, well, hold on, I got to ask Bunchy first. Or let me call somebody from the Black Panther Party. Or he'll quickly tell somebody, I can't answer for the Black Panther Party. You got to talk to them. He'll tell Black Panthers that to ask them a question. I can't speak for y'all. Why don't you talk to your central? So that's the biggest thing, just having that respect, and having that understanding that they are here to step up when we need them to, step back when it's required. As long as that understanding is upheld, I can't foresee us having any issues as far as cooperating together as two units in the same place.
Sounds good. So do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to advertise or promote or get out to the people?
I definitely want to say, if anybody that's on Facebook to watch this, please join the Justice for Saeed Joaquin Facebook group. Every Monday, I mean, I do it every day, but every Monday in particular, we have a push to send as many letters as we can to Governor Jay Inslee, to push him to get this private investigator on this case. That is a big thing. We also have another action network going for the BSU, the BSUs in North Thurston County. What's happening down there is ridiculous. The students are being bullied by administrators. There have been accusations of sexual harassment and abuse that have been swept under the rug. Of course, rampant racism. It's ridiculous. So, every Monday, of course, like Monday's Power Day, load up, send as many as we can. We have, I think that those two right there are the two things most readily available for people to get involved with. However, we do still have, our Feed the People program every 2 weeks. We have our Panther pickups every 2 weeks. We are in need of supplies, donations. You can donate to us directly on Cash App at $ Black Panthers WA. Or feel free to contact us at admin@blackpantherpartywa.com if you want to ask how you can make a donation any other way. As far as final thoughts, the world is a sick place, bro, and it's some of the things I've seen have only made me believe that it's getting sicker by the day. So it's imperative that we as Panthers especially take every opportunity to mix it up with the people, teach the people, inspire the people, capture the people's imagination, and make them believe that liberation is a real thing that can occur. Only by them truly believing that can they invest in it the way they should invest in it in order for us to win. A lot of people are afraid of violence. Violence and self-defense are not the same thing. And we have to be aware of that. We have to learn we have to figure out how to teach people the difference so they understand that when they take certain actions, it's not an action of it's not a criminal action, so to speak. It's actually an action of necessity. And I think that by studying some of the things we study, Che Guevara, Guerrilla Warfare, Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare by Kwame Nkrumah, we start to understand those points. So as we move forward, just make sure that educating the people stays first. It has to stay first, because if they don't know what they're dealing with, they don't understand why they should fight it, they won't fight.
Appreciate you, brother Bunchy. Now, do you have like any YouTube channels or radio programs, anything that y'all got going on that you want to speak on?
We do have the YouTube channel, and it's just on Black Panther Party of Washington. As of right now, we don't have the radio situation going, but we do have. I have a personal podcast that I'm starting called Panther Politics. We also have a couple of other podcasts that are getting going. We got a few episodes in the can, and we're about to start putting those out soon. So we got one done specifically by one of our comrades from the White Panthers. Doc, he is a revolutionary science brainchild. Like he's a genius. So we let him do his thing. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we do moving forward that is going to lean more in the media side, because I think that also has an effect on recruiting. Just seeing how visible you are does have a positive effect on recruiting, just because of the age that we're in right now. So I feel like all of those things are going to help. But as for the time being, you can check that out on you can check us out on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter. We're everywhere. And if hopefully you follow us and you see that we live up to what y'all expect from Panthers. Most definitely.
All right. Well, I appreciate y'all from being on the Panther 48, and we'll build some more, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, brother. Well, I appreciate you, man.
All right. Appreciate your other comrades. All power to people.
All power to the people.